Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another one of our weekly My Hero Academia Season 4 discussion videos, and today we're here to talk all about episode 17, or episode 80 overall, Relief for the Licensed Trainees. But before we get into the video proper, I do, as always, have to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Janame, at Bubbalubber, at Leahime, at Deep Not That Deep, at Matthew3645, at Tenko Yai, at Sirius9752, at Clear Chicken, and at FireOtaku845. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's My Hero Academia video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will shout out the first 10 of you in next week's video. Okay, so this is my second time recording this. If you guys remember from last week, you'll know that I actually had to re-record last week's as well, because I went on a bit of a tirade against the awful kids last week. I hated them. They ruined the episode, in my opinion, and I thought I had cooled on that. I was wrong. I actually have half of my notes are just about these awful brats. I've made my opinion on them clear. I don't feel the need to go over it. I will say that this has been my least favorite story beat of the entire show thus far, so that's saying something. I have lost a lot of respect for Gang Orca, not because I think his exam was necessarily poorly thought out. I do think it makes a lot of sense, given that heroes have to have a good rapport with all sorts of people, but we saw this before, and it didn't involve loud, obnoxious kids who then have fully grown adult dilemmas where they're like, the heroes don't know what they're doing. The adults don't know what they're doing. We know what we're doing. Like that's, the kids don't talk like that. And it was weird to have them be loud, obnoxious kids and then not talk like kids. It was really bizarre. And we've already done this whole trying to have a good rapport with citizens thing during the last exam arc. So it just, this whole thing, it's tainted Gang Orca for me, because I'm forever going to associate him with my now least favorite story beat from the show thus far. However, that is as mean as I'm going to get, because there's good things in this episode. Yes, half of it is dedicated to these dang kids, and these kids are awful, and I don't like them, and they ruined the episode in a large way, but at the same time, there's some great stuff in this episode as well that I would really like to talk about instead of just being the ranty, angry guy. So I am re-recording this. I'm done talking about these kids, and instead, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that I actually found to be really interesting. And actually, there is one little glimmer of something great within the whole kids part of the episode. The kids take up like the first half, and then Aoyama takes up like the second half. But there is one thing during the kids part that I thought was really interesting. Well, kind of two, but the Endeavor thing happens at the end, so I'm not going to count that. The one good thing that happens during this whole like trying to win these kids over is Bakugo has this wonderful line that I think might make up for some folks' issues with last week's episode, where I thought it still stood that Bakugo shows how much he's grown when he's willing to listen to Todoroki and hear him out. Folks were upset because I guess it wasn't exactly like the manga, although I've never really cared if it's exactly like the manga. I truly, and I want to stress this, I truly do not care if it's just like the manga. I care if it works in the show. And when I saw what people, like the scene that people wanted in there, it's just like a half-second flashback. It's like one panel. I have no issue with that. So I thought last week Bakugo's little growth moment, actually trying to listen to Todoroki, was cool. And in here, I think it just goes to show how much the character truly has grown. My explodey boy, my explosion son, has truly evolved. He is, like the line is, if you keep looking down on everyone, then you won't notice your own weaknesses. And the way it's said, you can tell that was just as much intended for this kid as it was for him. I think Bakugo might have seen that sort of arrogance in this kid that he himself felt back in the day. that sort of arrogance towards people like Deku, these like quirkless losers, quote unquote, or this quirkless loser, singular, quote unquote, and all these other sheeple who he was meant to lead, and he was going to be a hero because he was better than everybody else. And Bakugo has grown way beyond that. He's willing to not just scream and yell at other people, he's also willing to look in and question what it is about himself that he is weak at right now. And we've seen this character grow from zero to hero, as far as I'm concerned. And Bakugo, I have a soft spot for him. I think that's pretty clear. You guys know, like, he's one of my favorites in Class 1A. He's one of my favorites of the entire show. I adore Bakugo. So his growth kind of hits the soft spot for me. It was going to win me over no matter what. I think the line is expertly written, so kudos to Horikoshi if that's directly from the manga. And I don't know, I was just really impressed with that scene. It was the one good scene during that whole little story with the kids. But Bakugo's not the only character who actually had some depth this week, because like I said, it happens at the end, in the aftermath of the first half of the episode, sort of like in between the two parts of the episode, which really do make the episode feel very disjointed, by the way. But in between those, you get this little wrap-up where Shiketsu and Yue come to this realization that they're going to have a little bit more open conversation between the two schools, maybe even have some joint training practices, because that's just where they're at. Like, they need some joint training, they need to get stronger together, and they need to be more open, have more open dialogue, because the League of Villains aren't just attacking Yue at this point, they're attacking just about everybody. So they need to have some form of communication, and things are looking pretty dire, especially with the absence of All Might. So it led to that moment, but that also connects over to Endeavor, who has really impressed me. While this might be my least favorite story beat of the show thus far, it did at least give me the beginnings of this whole Endeavor arc that is pretty infamous from the manga. I'm so looking forward to this Endeavor arc. And again, not because I think Endeavor's this redeemable character who's a really nice guy. Like, no, it's nothing like that. I don't think anybody thinks Endeavor's a nice guy. And I think even people who like Endeavor's character admit that he is a piece of shit. Like, Endeavor's not a good person. And I don't really expect him to grow to be a good person. I expect him to be a complex person trying to do the right thing. At least that's the vibe that I'm getting, especially when he talks with Shoto. When he talks with Todoroki, it's this moment of like, hey, son, like, long time no see. Listen, I'm really proud of you. And Todoroki just looks at it like Shoto just backhands it. Like, not backhands it, but he backs it. He, like, whacks his hand away and says, like, I don't care. Like, I'm not happy to see you. Like, we don't have a relationship. And you could tell that that's true, because as far as Todoroki's concerned, like, Endeavor's the reason his mom went insane and burned part of his face. Endeavor has pushed his family away in order to chase his own dreams, and when he knew that he couldn't fulfill those dreams himself, he pushed that onto Todoroki. So he pushed his boy away. And it's going to take much, 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 much more to heal that bridge. And I don't even know if that bridge is ever going to be fully fixed. That is going to be one rickety bridge between these two characters. And I wouldn't really blame Todoroki if he never forgave him. I really wouldn't. But at the same time, this idea of a character who isn't so much trying to find redemption, but just try to do something right. You know what I mean? Like, those types of characters are really interesting. The characters who know they're beyond redemption, but they still want to try to do the right thing just to say that they did it once. Again, it's not so much that I think Endeavor is going to get redemption. In fact, I'd actually kind of be disappointed if, like, Endeavor is redeemed in the eyes of the public or in Todoroki's eyes. I think he's just meant to be a complex character. And the way that they've been presenting him, last episode, this episode, and how I'm hoping things will go in the future, I'm really looking forward to this. Like, I actually am excited to see where this character goes. And speaking of where characters go, I want to finish today's video by talking about one of my low-key favorite characters in My Hero, Aoyama. Aoyama is easily one of the most underrated of the characters. He is the most fabulous. I adore him to pieces. I just think he's fun. He's just a really fun character, and every chance that we get to see him shine, or twinkle, I suppose, as far as he's concerned, he does it expertly. I friggin' love this kid. Like, he's one of my favorites in Class 1A, Not as much as characters like Bakugo, obviously, because they've actually had a lot of time to grow, but I'm hoping by what we've seen from him this week, I hope that we'll actually start to see that evolve, because here, the way this starts with Aoyama basically stalking Deku, it's played like a horror movie, and it's friggin' hilarious. And this is where I'm like, okay, this episode is immediately way better. And this is the part of the episode where it gets really fun. And Aoyama basically straight up stalking our boy Deku was genuinely really funny. And it leads to this nice little moment where it's revealed that Aoyama wrote "I know" in cheese, because he thinks that Deku loves cheese now. But he wrote "I know" on Deku's balcony to tell him, like, I know what you're going through, that your quirk is damaging your body, because my quirk does the same thing. And I'd never really thought about it that way, but it's true. Aoyama and Deku do have that in common. Their quirks actually damage them, and it kind of made me realize that, like, the way Aoyama explains it, he's sort of like Scott Summers. Like, he's kind of like Cyclops from the X-Men, only, you know, not boring. Shots fired, but I mean, come on, even if you're an X-Men fan, you know that's true. But yeah, Aoyama is interesting, and I like the idea that whenever we get to see him be serious, it's such a shakeup from the way he's normally presented that it really grabs your attention. And I just thought he was stellar this episode. I was really happy to see him get some shine, get some dedicated story stuff just for him. And I'm really hoping that he is more in the show proper going forward. Deku even says, like, and from here on out, me and Aoyama were friends. And I really dug that, because again, they actually do have a little bit in common. Their quirks damage them. Aoyama wanted Deku to know that he knows that feeling. He knows what it's like to have your quirk hurt you, but also be the thing that you love about yourself. And he wanted to surprise Deku, because surprises make him feel great, so hopefully they made him feel great as well. I adore that. I adore this character. Again, I hope we get to see more of Aoyama. He's just a cool character, and yeah, there was a lot of really good character stuff in this week's episode. You just had to muddle through some not so great stuff to get there. With that said, though, everybody, that's all my thoughts on this week's episode. Overall, I would say that this episode's sort of like a cup of oolong tea. It's sort of it's not really sure what it wants to do. It does some stuff right and some stuff wrong. It's a cup of oolong tea. It's all right. The good stuff is great. The bad stuff is pretty lousy, but it's still a cup of tea. And I mean, come on, who doesn't enjoy tea? And with that said, that is a wrap on today's video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then go ahead and hit that like button. Maybe even consider sharing the video around on the internet, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around and see more content from me. And if you do, be sure to click on that bell icon so that you'll know immediately when a new video of mine comes out. And if you want to go above and beyond, then consider checking out our Teespring store and grabbing yourself a mug, or checking out our Patreon page, which really helps support the channel. And speaking of our Patreon page, I want to give a big thank you to those of you who support the channel over on Patreon. Andrew W., Calvin A., Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G., Digger the Fox, Emily, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Marshall B., Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Stephen G., Sakochi, Tristan G., and Veridin. A huge thank you to all of you who support this channel over on Patreon, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the link in the description to check out our Patreon page and get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. And with all that said, I want to once again thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.